This lecture explains about read-only fields. Read-only fields are much like instance fields, but only the difference is the value of read-only field cannot be modified. So read-only fields are isolated for every object because read-only fields are also stored inside the object only. So when you create an object, it includes the read-only fields also. So by default, read-only fields are instance fields, but only the difference is the value of read-only field cannot be modified. And much like regular instance fields, read-only fields are accessible with object, that is, through the reference variable. The read-only fields must be initialized in either of the two places, that is, either in line of declaration, that means along with the declaration, or read-only fields can be initialized in the constructor. I will explain about constructors in the further sections, but briefly, constructor is a special method of the class which executes automatically when we create object for the class. Constructors are mainly used to initialize the fields. So the read-only fields can also be initialized in the constructor. The purpose of initializing the read-only field in the constructor is you can call another method or perform some calculation, and you can store the result of the calculation or method inside the read-only field. But once the constructor execution has been completed, the read-only field value cannot be changed. Syntax of read-only field is almost same as static field, but instead of static keyword, we require to use the read-only keyword. So overall, when you want to store some common data that belongs to all objects of the class, use the static field. For example, in the student class, the room number, teacher name are common to all objects of the student class. You have a common data that belongs to all objects. At the same time, it is fixed value, you don't want to change it later. In that case, you have to use the constants. For example, you may don't want to change the value of college name field. In that case, use a constant. On the other hand, you have some data that is isolated to every object. That means the value of the particular field is individual for every object, but at the same time, you don't want to allow the value to be changed. In that case, go for read-only field. For example, in the student class, the registration number can be an example of read-only field because once you initialize, you don't want to change the registration number of the student later. And another point is, constants can also be declared inside the method. They are called local constants. But read-only fields must be declared in the class only. They cannot be declared as a local variable in the method. For example, I am going to create a read-only field, that is date of purchase, which is different for every object. And you must initialize the read-only field along with the declaration in the same line, or you can initialize the same in the instance constructor. To declare the constructor, write public and then write the current working class name, that is product. This constructor will be executed every time when you create an object for the product class. So I am creating the first object, so the constructor will execute automatically. And I am creating the second object. Again, the same constructor will be called. I am creating the third object. Again, the same constructor will be called. Our read-only field can be initialized in the constructor also. I will explain about constructors in the further sections. So, time being, I am initializing the read-only field in the constructor. That is, I am assigning the today's date by calling system.datetime.now. The system.datetime.now will give you current system date and time. the system.datetime.now will give you system date and time, and toShortDateString is a predefined method which returns the date in the form of month, date, year format. So we are getting the system date and time by using the predefined method called toShortDateString, and we initialize the read-only field, that is date of purchase. But once the constructor has been completed, outside the constructor, nowhere else you can modify the read-only field. So at that time, the read-only field acts as a constant. But do remember, read-only field will be stored in every object, much like a normal instance field. So you can access the read-only field much like a regular instance fields, just like how we are accessing the product ID, product name, etc. So I am displaying the date of purchase. So we can access the read-only field through the reference variable, and accessing the read-only field of second object. Because the value of read-only field is isolated for every object, it is not common for all the objects. And accessing the read-only field of third object also. And finally run the application. We are getting the date of purchase of each object. Even though the value is same for all the objects, you can store different values in read-only field if required. So the read-only field value can be differ for each object respectively. In order to do so, you can pass parameters to the constructor, and you can initialize the parameter value into the read-only field. At the time, the value of read-only field differs for every object. So at this point of time, we less know about constructors. So I don't suggest to pass parameters to the constructors as of now. But after knowing the constructors in the further sections, you can really initialize the constructor parameter into the read-only field. This is all about read-only fields in C#. In the next lecture, we will demonstrate the local constants.